I love you, Heartworm.
Welcome to another episode of AutisHim, Black Fathers and Autism. We back once again. I got my co-hosts right next to me, Lonnie, Nick. Trav is out. He's not feeling too well. Brother, get well soon. And of course, our brother Iwit has family duties. But we are back once again with a very exciting show. We have two young ladies here who have started their own show, their own movement, where we actually interviewed on their show. Part 1 and part 2 is out now on their platform. We are very, very interested to hear their story and see how all of this came about. I would love to introduce to you guys Brenda Major and Mia Dawson, the co-host and other co-hosts of the Super Power Radio Show. Let's give it up for these guys. This is awesome.
Thank you for having us. We are so excited to be here.
We sure are.
You know, I have to say, even before you start, how powerful your show was when you came onto our show, and how you just hit some notes with so many people.
We're getting a lot of feedback. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's glad to hear it. Thank you.
Yep.
We were honored to be on you guys' show. We really appreciate you reaching out. You know, at first when you reached out, I was like, I don't know about this because, you know, our first interview, you're always a little skeptical, like, is it legit? Is it not legit? But it was legit, and we are honored to be on you guys' show. So thank you for coming to ours and being here this evening. So I'm just going to start off with the obvious question. How did you guys get started with your show?
Go ahead, Brenda.
I can take that. You know, we have been friends forever, since before Mia's little boy Neo was even born. So we've always had a friendship. We've always had a bond, and we started by writing books about Neo and his adventures. And Mia can fill in a little bit more about that, but basically, I had a friend who I did a podcast for him through another venue because I also do financial planning. So I was on his show with that. And then I mentioned to him, I was like, hey, your audience might also have an interest in what my partner and I are doing to support people with autism, because so many people have been diagnosed with it. And said, well, you know, I hadn't thought about it. He said, well, yeah, I'll just let's bring him on. So we did his podcast.
Yeah.
And he does a show that deals with work relationships and, you know, conflicts at work. So he wasn't even sure if this would land right with his audience.
Right.
But it landed so right with his audience, he was like, wait a minute, there's so many people who are asking me questions and I don't have the answers. And he said, you know what? Y'all need to get on this platform and do your own show. So that's how we started.
Yep.
Wow. That's awesome. And I can't speak for everybody on the podcast, but I'm almost pretty sure everybody feel this way. It's great to see not only people of color, but Black folks speaking about this topic, because from what I've seen, and I'm not, you know, I don't know everything that's happening in the world, but from what I've seen in our community, this is not a topic of discussion. At least it's not as much as it should be. So when you guys invited us on your show and we found out that it was legit, I was excited because I'm like, wow, here's another platform that is just as passionate as we are with, you know, trying to inform people about, the spectrum and autism and, getting diagnosed and everything that comes along with that. So again, we just appreciate you guys being here. So going off of that, now that you guys started this show, what would you say is the most interesting thing you've learned now that you're in this space, this media space now?
I did not realize that so many people had so many gifts under autism. I think when Brenda's friend came to us, I was like, what are we going to talk about to keep up a show for 30 minutes less on an episode? We were like, what are we going to talk about? And so I didn't realize there was so much content. There was so many people going through this, but going through it at different levels that have overcame. We've had so many people that have actually overcome autism. We have some that started right at the beginning. So I didn't realize how rich the content could be, because Brenda and I both were like, we're not going to be able to keep up with an episode. Like we didn't think it was that much information out there. Should I say that? Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that, Brenda? Like we had no.
I would. And you know what's been so, I guess, so heartwarming to me is like you guys and Mia too, and her husband Stefan. When you realize that you have, and we call people with autism people with superpowers.
Yeah.
So when you have a superpower kid, I think there's a few things you could do. You could like deny it, like I don't want no superpowers in this house. You're gonna get over it.
Yep.
So, we ain't got none. I'm the only super in this house. But you can deny it.
Yep.
You can try to sweep it under the rug.
Yep.
You could like desperately go out there going, hey, what am I supposed to do with this kid?
Yeah.
Or you can realize, okay, I'm just gonna have to figure stuff out and get some resources and pull them together myself.
Yep.
And I have just been amazed at the number of people we've talked to who said, you know what, I couldn't find it for my kid.
Yes.
So
yep,
I created it for my kid.
Yep.
And it blew up. I mean, we've talked to people like you guys with this AutisHim. I'm just in love with that name, man. It's just spot on. And there's so many other organizations that started just from a parent going, what the heck is this? And who else got something out there that I can, pull into this and figure stuff out? So that's just been amazing to me.
So Mia,
yes,
I know that you have a superpower kid.
I do.
How has the show either helped or hindered the relationship between you and your superpower kid?
It has definitely helped, because I found other resources to kind of help him, just talking to different other people. So it has definitely helped. It has actually allowed me to do something on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday I've been doing it on social media, of just sharing his testimony in his life and his accomplishments, or what he has not accomplished. And that came strictly from the radio station. Our social media gal was like, hey, you need to get more out there. People need to hear your story. People need to feel hope. And so it has definitely enhanced that, because it made me have to take another step out there to put ourselves out there, which I didn't really want to do. She was going at me for like 3 months. I did not want to do that. I didn't want to put us out there in that manner, and I didn't want to put him out there in that manner. But I have seen greatly that it helps, because people need hope to say, I'm not going to stay in the same situation. My kid can overcome this obstacle. So it has been very much a great thing with him. And he knows that we're talking about him. So that gives him some confidence too. He knows we're talking about him. He'll ask, what are you talking about today? Are you talking about me? What are you talking about? I mean, he's asking questions. What are you? And he calls Brenda Bunny. That's her nickname for him. What are you and Miss Bunny talking about today? So it's even helped him, like he's a part of something too.
All right.
That's awesome.
Now, what are your thoughts on just how has it changed in terms of acceptance and awareness, autism in the Black community? How has that changed? You mentioned before you weren't necessarily comfortable talking about it, putting your story out there. That was my same experience. We were working on a paper together, doing the biographies. and one of the writers said, "Do you want to put I have a child with autism?" I said, "No, I want to put that in my biography." And this was like 2 years ago, and so I'm still getting over myself being out there and sharing that information. But what are your thoughts just on awareness, how it has evolved, and acceptance in the Black community?
It has gotten better, I would think. Brenda and I just did on this past Saturday a Kwanzaa event. And I was very surprised of how many people came and was happy to even, we had so many people come to the table and say, we're going through this, or I have a grandson, I have a nephew. And that wasn't happening before. Not with our culture, it wasn't. That was not happening at all. Brenda and I would see that something was going on and they didn't want to acknowledge it, so we had to back off. So we're starting to see, just because we're kind of getting out there with the show and the social media and the books, that they're at least attempting to talk to us to say, hey, something's going on. Is there a way that you guys can help? I had somebody reach out this week. A gal was in Danville and she needed Danville, Illinois. So we're in Illinois, and that's a little bit, what is that? Is that west, east? What is that? East of us?
Danville, yes, south of Chicago.
South of Chicago. It's south of Chicago. So, but reached out because she needed some help. And so it's starting to kind of open up the more awareness I'm seeing. We were not seeing that at all. Not at all before. I think for our culture, we need a face. We need somebody to go first sometimes, and to see it, and to see that somebody has actually also accomplished it, and then we can kind of get out there. I think for us, it's sometimes embarrassing. We don't want to accept it. We don't want to talk about it. So if we can see somebody go first, I think we'll kind of jump on the bandwagon after that.
So when you guys think about how as a culture we can push the conversation forward, what are some of the ways you think that we can actually do that? Because I know for us, like, and I said this in you guys' platform, where I find myself telling my own story a lot. And as much as that does help, I do come across a lot of families, because I work in higher education, where they bring their kid to college, and we don't necessarily have a transitional programs, but we do have a lot of good people that make sure that the students with challenges are flourishing in their classes, just because we want them to succeed.
Okay.
But what do you think needs to happen for Black folks in particular, people of color, to push the conversation more, put it more out there? Because it's out there, but it's not. And I'm just going to be honest, when we talk about different podcasts, when it comes to us, it's like maybe 1 or 2% when we're talking about on the spectrum, and then everybody else, is white. And there's nothing against, like, Caucasian individuals. Like, I'm not saying that they don't need the platform. They definitely need the platform. And to be honest, it'd be cool if we, we're on a platform and they were on ours. Like, we definitely need to work together. But what are some of the things you think needs to happen in order for us to get that conversation more out there?
We have to kind of look at it as a multi-leveled kind of situation. I think the first thing, and I really do believe, I really do believe that I was God directed into this space. From knowing Mia, but I also work with her husband and her dad, who owns a community center in Decatur, Illinois, and that's where I work. And I work with kids who have superpowers, most of whom who have not been diagnosed. And so you're right, there is a stigma, there's a cultural issue that needs to be addressed. But I think first and foremost for me is to show these kids love and acceptance. And then to communicate to their parents, not in a judgmental way.
Correct.
Well, case in point, we have a set of twins who they're 8 years old, and it is very difficult to understand them when they talk. So in my head, I'm going, okay, they need speech therapy. You can just go down the line and see what it is that they need that they're not getting in the schools. And, Lonnie probably can attest to some of that, trying to advocate for your kids in the school, but you have to be aware and comfortable enough to go all in for your kid. That's not what we see with the kids at the center. So what we do is try to love them up, encourage them, and really try to empower them to just take a baby step at a time. So they're doing a Christmas program next week, and every kid has a line in this poem. And these two twins, I'm just telling them, look, you don't have to read it. This is just like this. Just do what I do. And so I'm standing behind them and I'm hugging both of them and go, okay, and animating their hands. And but I'm also, whenever we get the chance, when their parents pick them up, you know what? Guess what they did today? And sometimes the parents are not all that interested. Sometimes the parents think you're lying. I was like, no, they recited these lines in the poem. And when you see them Thursday, they're going to be ready to go. So I think sometimes we almost have to be the co-parent in a way to let parents know there's so much potential in your kid. Please don't throw your kid away. Please don't think, well, we'll just let them go through school and just hope everything's okay. I mean, we have to pour so much into them that it spills over into the parents and into the siblings, because these two girls also have a brother and older brother and sister who are at the center, and they're neuronormal and a little snarky sometimes. So you have to encourage them. Okay, now you got to work with them on these two lines too. So get them ready. So I think it really starts at that micro level, and then I think the next step is when parents see that, okay, somebody really does care about my kid. It's not that the schools don't care; it's that they're so overrun and tired and distraught, don't have enough help and don't have the training. So, but it can feel very much like these kids are discarded. So if you can get them into a situation where people can interact with them and empower them, then you empower the parents, and then you really go along side by side with the parents to advocate for the kids in the school. So there's a lot of levels to it, a lot of work.
I completely agree with that. I think you go from a place of we as a culture we're so used to oppression, being oppressed and coming from the negative side all the time. So if we go from that goodness part and going from that part first and then elaborate, I think it's a lot better. Instead of coming in, I sub for alternative school. And so the parents immediately always think, if I have to call them or talk, what did he do now? What does she do now? No, I called to tell you that your kid is the best in my class and they don't have to take the exam next week because they've totally aced everything. What do you mean? So they come from a negative perspective all the time. And so I think that's our first thing. If we can just embrace, no, this is goodness. Stop coming from that oppression part and that negative side first. And then, like Brenda said, then we can add on. But it's always, we've noticed all the time, it's so negative and you're not seeing. That's why we called it the superpower, that you have been enlightened with a superpower. There's something special. There's something great about you that nobody else has. And then we can go from there. I think I totally agree with you, Brenda, on that.
Yeah.
So
one good thing right now, autism prevalence is sort of leveled out. So we're seeing similar numbers across demographics, right? However, we're still seeing a delay. We're still seeing up to a 3-year delay, and not just a delay in diagnosis for us, but then a delay in services.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then on top of that, a lot of the kids are getting diagnosed with ID, intellectual disability.
Yes.
And I push back on that a lot because they've have a delayed diagnosis, no services, no treatment, and so is it intellectual disability or just they haven't been taught the basics, right?
Correct.
So I push back on that sometimes, but I think what's important for parents to understand is that autism is not static, right? It's not. People develop and grow and whatnot, and so
yes.
Just in thinking about that, what are some of the other challenges you see as far as these students, young folks you see in schools? You mentioned some of the family challenges. What are some of the school challenges you see?
They didn't get I know Brenda's going to agree with this too, and they didn't get the basics. So now I'm having to repeat over, and Brenda's absolutely right. There's something going on. So they didn't get that part, but then they didn't even get the basics. So now you're trying to play catch up, especially like with math. If you don't know addition, there's no way we go get to division because we should have got to addition, we should have got to addition. So they didn't even get the basic parts. And now you just kind of move them along, and then they know they didn't get it. So now you're dealing with their own self-esteem and their own issues because they know they don't know. So we see the challenge of them not even getting the basic foundation to start. And then you're asking me to create a miracle. Basically, you teach them, but they didn't have the basics. We're seeing that dynamic. And COVID, Brenda and I talked, COVID just totally destroyed. I tell Brenda all the time, I'm like, we just need to start over. Like, I just want to reset over because COVID completely destroyed. I have just never seen anything just completely be destroyed in my entire life. Like, it was already something going on in education, and this just destroyed it. We just need to start over. So COVID was a big one too.
There's just so many things that come into play. You almost want to kind of take the family to school.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. Yes,
because guys, totally. We talked. You were on our show that people of older generations think that you're too sensitive.
Yes,
you're playing into these kids' sensitivities.
Yes,
but they didn't have, and we didn't have, all of this social media bombarding these kids.
Yes.
They have to feel accepted. And again, at the center where I teach GED to teenagers. Then I teach adult basic education to older folks. And then we work with the kids on the younger level. So basically from ages 6 to about 30 plus. And there's just something significant. There's a thread there, and it is low to no self-esteem.
Yep.
And I mean, even in a 6-year-old.
Yes.
And being hypersensitive to what people think about them.
Correct.
She looked at me funny. But even in the older people, even though they won't express it the same way, they still want to feel accepted.
Yes.
And when they don't, they shut down.
Yes.
And so even in the adults, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, and being embarrassed because they don't know how to read.
Yes.
Something interesting in Illinois. Sheesh. Oh. I hope it's unique to Illinois. There's something unique to Central Illinois, Decatur. When I first came here, the first time I came in, Tyrone, and I was director of admissions at the university here. And I remember going to a town hall meeting with parents of high school people. And they were talking to folks in the public school system who were on the platform trying to justify the dropout rate for African American males in Decatur, Illinois. That was 20 years ago. It was 65%.
It sure was. It sure was.
And I'm from Chicago, and I nudged the woman next to me and I said, she didn't say 65%, did she? And she said, yeah. Yep. I said, okay, well, that's not a dropout rate. That's a push out rate.
Yeah.
So, they don't have truant officers anymore. They keep the kids on the books until they're 16.
Yes.
And they say, okay, you don't have to come back.
Yep.
And so then when our program gets the ones who do want to continue on, a lot of them are bright. I mean, you don't know why they couldn't go to school.
They are very bright. Yes.
Some of them, even in our program, we've got a brother and sister, and she comes in the afternoon and he comes in the morning, which works great because they couldn't be in school because their mother has a 2-year-old and she had to be at work. So they had to be home babysitting.
Yeah.
And they are incredibly bright.
Yeah.
Incredibly bright.
Yeah.
So there's a weird dynamic. Like I said, I hope it's unique here. And the other thing I realized is there are no standards in Illinois for homeschooling.
No.
None.
No.
None. None.
Nope.
I mean, and I called the board because of the Illinois Board of Education, because I said, okay, I know you used to. When I was in college admissions, you at least had to have a transcript and test scores, and they said, oh, well, if they want to go to college, I guess, they could still take the test, but there's no curriculum requirement. Nothing. there are some unique challenges. Again, I pray that it's just Illinois, but I've never heard of anything that crazy in my life. So this is a serious battle for each of these kids, because if they don't develop self-esteem and believe that they can succeed, the streets will snatch them up, and they will succeed in the streets, hopefully, or the other, they'll become the other statistic.
Yeah.
So it's
right.
Yeah, it's
So because this is the AutisHim podcast,
yeah.
I want to tailor this around guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you both, or what do guys need to show? Males, fathers, brothers, siblings, or even men that may be on the spectrum themselves. What do you all, or what would you like for men to do, show, see in and around the autism atmosphere? Is it enough men? Is it too little men? Do the men that's in there need to do more? What would you like to see from your place inside of the autism atmosphere from men?
Nick, can I be honest? I have not, just in these last, well, Brenda, would be after from COVID, because it was not before. After COVID, I have never seen as many men that we have seen. Like, we've been traveling a lot in the Chicago area. There was a lot of fathers, and there was a lot of fathers of color. And Brenda and I were like, what is going on? And they were involved. They weren't just like sitting there. They were asking questions, and they were chasing kids around. And so that was so eye-opening us, because we've been doing this since 2015. And so we didn't see that prior to 2020. And so I would say for more of them to be visible, we need even more, especially of color. But we also need them to communicate, to tell us what is going on. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you, I know my husband in the beginning, he was just trying to process and understand all of it. Like, what is this? What is going on? He has these dreams. My kid's going to play basketball and football. And that is my son. That oldest one ain't that. He ride horses and he play the piano. Now the Lord did bless him, because that youngest one is his athlete. But for it to be his first son, that's what he was expecting, and he wanted to communicate with his son. And now he's starting to communicate when the kid's 14. And so, but I told him, I said, you need to talk to other men. Other men need to talk about that, because if you're feeling that, other men are feeling that too. And I think for us as a wife, I want you to be able to communicate and talk about that, so that these other men can feel like that too. Because we have a lot of men come to us, and Brenda's like, okay, we're going to have to talk, send them to, now we got you guys. We will be referring people, because they're coming asking questions that only this uniquely to men. So I can't actually say, Nick, that there has been an increase, because we know in the beginning we did not see that. And we seen more men, one of those, Brenda, that we went to in Chicago, than we seen the moms. We seen more, we couldn't believe it. We seen more men than we seen moms. So it's been, you guys are getting out there now. You're like, I don't know why, but you're getting out there now saying, hey, I want to be involved. I want to know what's going on. So I think it needs to be more. Brenda, what do you think?
Oh, I totally agree with you there. I mean, again, I keep going back to all these cycles, but okay. But, men who have been browbeat for years.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, it's not that some men don't want to stay.
Yes.
Sometimes it's almost impossible for them to stay.
That's true. That's true.
And then you have women who expect their sons to be their husbands.
Yep.
So,
yep. You have all that going. Yep.
So there's a lot on men, and then you've got this aspect, and how do they navigate all of that? Well, the bottom line is they need more organizations like AutisHim.
Yes.
And the way that you guys do it, being real, not coming at it just strictly from a clinical perspective.
Yep.
Or from even a socioeconomic perspective.
Yep.
It's got to be a heartfelt thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is amazing. I remember when I was working at my alma mater, which is Southern Illinois University, and I was doing workshops for young men. And basically, to get them to talk, you get them to come over, you feed them.
You feed them, huh?
You have them in the room, and you pass the ball from person to person, and they have to answer the question. Of course, some of them would drop the ball because they ain't want to answer the question. Man, can't drop the ball now because we counting on you.
Yeah.
And I remember one young man, and he was 21 years old, and he said, "Miss Major, I never would have thought I would even be sitting here answering this question because I wasn't thinking I was going to live to be 21 years old."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that for a lot of them is real.
Yeah. Yeah.
They live like they could die any moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, on the flip side of that, I had kids in my class who said, "You know what? Look, I didn't do my homework because I didn't think I was going to make it to class because I got on the bus and somebody chased me." That's another deal. I was like, "But you're still alive,"
Yeah.
that's what I've told them. You're still alive, so let's do the homework. Dodge whatever you got to dodge and get to class because you're still here. But again, so many people have that fatalistic mentality,
Mm-hmm.
that by women mentality, and this really weird expectation that fairy tales taught women that every man's supposed to be their Prince Charming riding up on the white horse and yada yada yada. And so and honestly, and maybe this is just my theory, but I think sometimes guys resort to hustling because they're trying to meet that woman's expectations.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more on men than I think women will admit to. And as much as I think there needs to be more AutisHim to let men just breathe and exhale.
Yes.
There needs to be some come to Jesus time with women too.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Maybe this is the financial planner in me, but I'm like, look, he's not your ATM.
Yeah.
You can do this. You can do this. But until we are willing to be real with each other, when we come together, then you got super people raising superpower kids, and that can be a beautifully empowering thing.
But here's the beautiful thing about the superpower males, though. They don't even know and they don't care. Like Neo doesn't have the concept of any of that. He just want to grow and thrive. So that's where I think when you have those superpower males or boys, that's like, it's almost like I always tell Brenda, God just blocks something out of them because they're able to thrive without having all those preconceived ideas or anything. Neo doesn't have that. He kind of just, this is what I'm going to do and I got to do it. And he doesn't, I mean, he's liking girls now, but if he don't like her no more, he's like, nope, I don't like her no more. I'm like, oh, okay, what does she do? What does she do? She's just, I'm done. Okay, they don't have all these. So that's
the cool reason that he's able to do that is because you guys have surrounded him with people who just love him up.
Yeah, that's true.
And I wish more kids had that, but those kids who are out there by themselves trying to figure out what's wrong with me, why are they bullying me, what do I need to do?
Yes.
They're looking for, well, what's the equalizer in this? I mean, is it a gun? Do I go sell? I mean, I got to be able to do something.
Yeah.
If I can't really figure out what's going on in my head and I don't know how to talk about it.
Correct.
And I don't know who can help me because some of these kids, they just don't have that support and they're trying to figure it out. And some of these men are out there trying to figure it out and they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
So you guys kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but what would you say to families that are in denial that their child has a superpower? Because I've dealt with families, I'm sure Nick and Lonnie have dealt with it, where people are just in denial and they don't want to admit that, their child has a superpower. And so what advice would you say to them, or what would you say to them? Like, hey, maybe consider this or consider that. Like, what would you say to those families?
I have a good friend,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Tina.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I have a really good friend who was in complete denial. She and her husband both. I mean, it was, and and people tell me, you think everybody has autism. You say everybody, but
they do tell her that.
they do. Well, I mean, you pick up on things. So, and his were like they were glaring, signs, and she knew I had started writing these books and stuff, and it's almost like she just didn't want to deal with it. She didn't want to. Somehow she thought if I just don't say the word,
Yep.
then it's
Yep.
really real. And so I wanted to tell her and to love her up and support her in it, but I prayed about it, and God said, you know what? When she comes to you and
Yes.
asks you, then you tell her.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't, don't.
Yeah.
And they were at a book fair that Mia and I were at in Chicago. And she brought him because, he hadn't seen me in a while, and he was way overstimulated, and he was out of control.
Yeah.
And so we were, going, okay, it's okay. It's okay. And I used to do this with Mia's son Neo, as I call it kind of a straitjacket hold, but it's really just a good from behind them hug.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat down and just kind of hugged him and just kind of breathed with him. And I think when she saw that, then she was like, okay. But it still took her like 3 or 4 more months before she asked me. She said, "Do you think he has autism?" And I said, I know he does. And maybe some other things. So you need to, and he was like 5 or 6 before they had him diagnosed. But I just hugged her up and said, you know what? We're in this together.
Yeah.
He doesn't have autism. We have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have it.
Yeah.
So we just got to get a bunch more we's around him, and we're gonna walk through this. And oftentimes it's the super kid who guides us.
Yes.
Who helps us to make sense of it and helps us to change the way we think and do things so that we can give them that support they need.
Yeah, Tyrone, I definitely wait till the person is okay. I don't want to be, because I'm like Brenda, I can see different signs and I can see it, and I'll drop hints. I'll drop little hints, and I'm like, yeah, did you do? Yeah, and or I'll say, hey, Neo used to do, and they kind of, oh, really? And but until they're really ready, then I come in, I'll give all the resources, I try to help, but I don't try, because I didn't, and I had to go back to myself, in their shoes. I didn't take it like that because I didn't even know what it was. So I didn't go into the extreme, like, oh my God, I didn't do that because I didn't really understand what it was. And you know what, I'm gonna be honest with you, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pray to God and he gonna fix it. That's how my belief was. I was like, God, you need to do whatever you do up there, fix them, not touch them, do something. And when he didn't fix it, then I got upset because I was under the impression, okay, something's wrong and then we need to fix it. So I didn't go into the mode of I didn't deny that he didn't have, that wasn't me. And that wasn't my husband either. We both were just like, God, go fix them, and then we're going to move on with our lives. And then when it didn't happen in that way, that's when I kind of was like, okay, what are these feelings? Let me process these feelings out. Let me figure out what I'm really feeling. Then it went to a mode of me. I got depressed, saying, what did I eat? What did I take? I didn't even blame my husband. I was like, this is on me. I'm sorry. I was carrying them. And I had a beautiful pregnancy. I felt more healthier pregnant than I did not. Like it was beautiful. And so it went from not even blaming him or anybody else. It was like me, I did this to him. So I never was in denial like that. So I just try to go now when I'm talking to families, step by step, when they're ready. Okay, now I'm going to give you some information. Now I'm going to do, and then some of them, even what Brenda said, you may give them a little bit and they kind of back off. It's too much. And so I kind of got to roll with, my biggest deal with families though is like, please get it in the beginning, because I know the longer you wait, it's going to be harder to get them back on track. So I think, and that was what Brenda was with her friend, like, oh, we could have caught this at 2 instead of 5. We're kind of a couple years behind. That's where it's kind of more hurting for us, because early intervention is key. Is definitely key.
I have to keep reminding myself that my experience of my son's autism and his growth, we've been working with him for years and years and years, and now he's doing well. He's flourishing,
Yes.
and I'm like, oh, I don't know where he's going to end up, but he's like, it's a good momentum, right?
Yeah.
But I have to remind myself that other parents have children with more significant support needs.
Yes, that's very true.
And so I see a lot of parents really struggling who have kids with significant support needs, and some parents who reject the idea of it being a superpower. Some parents who say, I hate autism, right? And so that's an interesting dynamic that I'm seeing. But I'm thinking about, you mentioned, Brenda, that you being a financial planner. I know that some of the concerns we've had is just thinking about when my kid is older, when I'm not here, what's going to happen. So can you talk a little bit about just thinking about longer term needs and support for kids with superpowers? Some who may be able to be independent, others who might not. What are some things parents can do to prepare when their kids might have higher levels of support needs, like financially?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lonnie. And I would say, probably a shameless plug for me, actually. But
I knew you was going there.
But people do need to talk with a financial planner who's sensitive to those needs that are going to come up. They need to establish, a plan, a financial plan, and even an insurance plan, and a trust, and an executor of a trust for their superpower person.
Very true.
The likelihood is, depending on the super kid and their abilities as they grow, they're still going to need somebody who will be able to manage their affairs.
Correct.
And their parents may not be around at that time.
Correct.
Because again, autism's not a death sentence. There are older people who are on the spectrum. And so there are now financial services that we can meet with people and actually set up individual plans. So that gives you a little bit more peace of mind. But there are lots of things that you can do. But we, with the way I do it is I meet with you individually and determine what those needs are. And I have access to lots of resources that can get you. And everything works better when you start earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So the earlier you do it, don't wait until this child is an adult. You want to have those systems in place. You want to have everything in place. You really want to have a good, solid, detailed trust. So you know that your kid's going to be taken care of in every aspect possible, particularly financially, but in terms of their educational needs, and their socio and communicative needs as well. You need to identify who that executor is, but we walk you through that because it's just one more thing. I think for some people, oh my God, now I got to think about that. But yeah, you have to think about that too. But we walk you through it.
So that's a lot more money. So, even talking about what does that look like for your family now, everybody, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this. A lot of the superpower kids have bad eating habits. A lot of the eating habits are horrible. And so trying to get them to eat more healthier, well, that costs more money. And especially with how high groceries are right now. So even talking about, my husband and I had to switch a lot of stuff because a bulk of our money goes to the doctor for him. And he just had Brenda know he can't eat gluten and wheat because he just had a reaction for the past 6 or 7 months. Now, he didn't have it before, but it just came. And so now we had to switch and pay more money for that. So not even talking about money in the future, Brenda can even help with, okay, do you need to put up an extra $200 because I got to pay more for his horse therapy? That horse therapy is expensive. So that's more. So those are extra things that's not getting discussed either, that need Brenda can definitely help with, because that's just an expense. When you had your kids, you and you got your wives, y'all didn't plan on that going. That's not an expense you planned on. We did not plan on that. We planned on college, maybe getting a car, but I didn't plan on, a car for him. But I didn't plan on, oh my gosh, at 3, I'm going to these doctors and he all these testings and allergic testings and therapy, counseling. That was an extra expense. So I know Brenda helps out even with that, of dealing with that in the beginning. Because insurance is not covering everything. They're just not. Believe me, they're not covering it.
Right.
So when we talk about long-term care, I know in certain states, at least the state that I'm in, there are organizations that have lifespan checklists. Now, these checklists aren't just about finances. These checklists about any and everything when it comes to your child on the spectrum or your superpower kid.
Okay.
It's an educational checklist. I've been in certain spaces where I've been told that you want to plan 10 years ahead of your child, because depending on where you are, there are certain wait lists that you will want to be
Very
on.
true.
And
Very
if
true.
the wait list is super long, then it could be a wait list for when they're in high school. You need to get on a wait list now.
Very true.
So by the time that they're in high school, you're either up on the wait list or closer to the top, or even getting the services that you may need at that moment in time.
Very true.
So there are things that when we're talking about the longevity of services provided, see if there are organizations inside of your area that can give those lifespan checklists so that you can plan for that. If your child, we all have the guys on the autism, all of our kids are around the same age, and sure, we may have thought when our kids were born that we would drive they would drive cars.
Yes.
Well, if your kid is not going to be in a position to drive a car, you need to think about transportation if they do end up with a job.
That's
Say
true.
they work at a library or they're doing a job that they like to do. How are they going to get there? Is there transportation? Are you going to take them? Some of those things you have to start planning for now.
That's very true.
So that when that comes up, it's not such a large shock to your system.
That's very true.
I live by a saying, chance favors the prepared mind. So it's not perfect, but it will be more in your favor if you're given an opportunity to plan ahead. And some of these organizations have some of those checklists that you can use to help. True. And even though your kid is under 10, you start looking at what he's going to need at 18. Because by the time 18 comes, those services you may not be able to get on the list or get or partake in because of how long those lines are. So, for all of the families and parents, superpower kids or kids on the spectrum, and you're watching this, just look in your local, statewide, or even national organizations and see if they have some of those resources that could help you plan for the future.
Yeah, that's very true.
So Mia and Brenda, this is my last question I have for you guys. Mia, I'm gonna ask you this question. Brenda, please jump in. So we all know that the divorce rate is high in the country. And then when you have a child with challenges, it's high. What advice would you give to couples, to families, about how to keep the marriage united when you have a child that has challenges?
That's a very good question. So my husband and I just celebrated 20 years in October. 20 years. And one of our big things is you have to find time for us, for ourselves. Now, we don't necessarily do a date night. Our schedules are just insane that we don't do a date night, but we do every couple months we get out of town. We leave for 3 or 4 days to kind of refresh and talk and get everything together. You have to come together by yourself. I tell couples that all the time. Everything cannot be the kids, the job, especially the stress that comes on with having a superpower kid. You also have to give each other grace for how you are dealing with it. I deal with Nehemiah differently than my husband does. I am very eccentric and spicy, and my husband's kind of laid back and calm, and we balance each other. But I had to learn very early, I can't try to make him do it the way that I do it. And sometimes I was like, well, you need to do it this way. So I talked to him, and he was like, whoa, wait. I got a different relationship with him. And that can start an argument with the spouses because you didn't put him in the bath the way I thought you should have, or you didn't feed him what I thought you should. You know, he's eating different stuff with his dad. And I'm like, well, dude, I didn't serve him that. Why are you eating that with me? And I had to get past my little ego. Like, I had to get past it and be like, wait a minute. He's developing something strong with his father that's completely different from me. Let him have his relationship with his child and not try to provoke, get in there and do what I want him to do. And so those are two important things that I would let each relationship with that kid grow and flourish on its own, and not have the other ones trying to tell the other one what to do, but also make sure that they have time for themselves. And if it is a date week, fine. But we don't have that luxury of doing that. Our family, our parents and every family, a lot of our support system does not live in the city that we're in. So we have to do like weekend things. We're going to actually do a weekend thing next weekend. But you got to have time for yourself. That it's just you and him. What was your dreams? What were you thinking about? And not talking about them either. Not talking about, oh, we got to go to the therapy session. And oh my God, you see what no. What's your dream? Do you got a dream? Is there something you want to do with your life? Like, we try not to talk about that. We try to talk about other things. And that is essential. And I think that's what has helped us. Besides, we're Christians and God is always first. But besides that, the practical part is us doing those two things of allowing our relationship with our kid to grow individually and not us bumping heads about how. Because I was doing that in the beginning. I can be honest, as a wife, I was like, man, he ain't doing this right. And because I was a stay-at-home mom too. I was at home with them. My husband worked and I was at home. So I was like, it has to be done this way and that way and da-da-da. And I had to back up. And I'm like, you're creating friction here. And I had to learn how to let him develop his own relationship with his kid and vice versa.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is, again, going back to those basics. I mean, way back, like, why did you get married in the first place?
Yeah.
You really have to me, and Marianne Williamson said this a long time ago, you have to be so full of love that you can't contain it in yourself, and you have to share it with somebody else.
Yeah.
And then that person, your person, has to be the one that receives it and also gives it back to you. And you don't get to choose not to keep doing that.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, there's commitment and discipline involved in every aspect of your life.
Oh yeah.
You don't just get married and then let it all go.
No.
Now you're in there together.
Yeah.
And you're pouring into each other constantly. And when one person is empty, I'm getting something from the other person.
Yeah.
So it's got to be that, and you got to commit to it. And sometimes you have to fake it until it comes back, but you don't leave. You fake it till you feel it again. Why did you marry this person? What do you like about yourself that this person liked about you? And if you don't like that about yourself, now you go fix it.
And you're right about like each other. Like I told my husband, I like you. I like being around you. We've been friends since we were 10 years old. Now we didn't date that long. We lived around the corner from each other. We grew up in the same area. But I like him as a person. So you're right. I like you as a friend. Like she said, I was one of the ones, I'm not just going to be putting up with you and we just in here and no, I don't want to be 60 and coming down here he come. I didn't want that. I did not want nothing. Like, no. And we talked about that. Like, I want to be happy and joyous in the whole thing. And so I'm like, I like you. I like you as a person. I like you. And she's right. When you're in there and you committed, we always say we are in here until the Lord come back. And so, yes, we have bad days. Yes, we don't agree and all that. But especially when it's God, I think God chose us parents to raise these superpower kids. So we have a responsibility to stay committed, to stay together, to get these superpower, because God chose us. Like, he didn't choose everybody. He's like, y'all can handle it. I know y'all don't think y'all can handle it, but y'all can handle it. And I want to show my glory in these superpower kids. So, hey, y'all two come together and y'all figure it out and y'all bring these kids up. And that's how I feel. He should charge me a responsibility for Nehemiah and Isaiah, but definitely for Nehemiah because he's a superpower kid. He and my husband.
Well, Brenda and Mia, I want to thank you both for coming on to our show. We're very happy to have you here.
Hey, Tom.
And what's going on?
I got one more question.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I ain't trying to shut it down early. Go ahead.
Before we log off. If there is one message, Mia and Brenda, that you would want to give to the AutisHim audience or to guys in general, fathers of superpower kids or guys who are on the spectrum themselves or guys who know kids on the spectrum that deal with them, if there was one message, each of you all can give your message that you would want to give those guys, what would that message be?
Ooh.
I love that question.
I know.
You know what? And I just go back to, you've seen this message that, God didn't make no junk. Okay. There's God in everybody. There's God in everybody. And I would say tap into that center and even ask God, what's lovable about me? Don't be so willing to throw yourself away because other people have. I think you really almost have to get into a closet, get under the desk, go somewhere and just go, okay, God, what is it? Why am I here? Show me what's good in me. And then you have to do that every day because there's so many things that are thrown at men that, I mean, I think that's probably why I'm not one, because I don't think I can handle all of that. But there's a lot to deal with. That's why I'm so excited about you guys, because when you have those points where you need somebody to remind you that God didn't make no junk, you guys come together and you build each other up. But I think what struck me about you guys is your vulnerability. And I will be honest, I have never seen a group of men with that level of vulnerability before. And I don't know if you would have had it had you not been raising super kids. I don't know. But I'm glad that you are, and I'm glad that you're coming together and that you've got that unique bond. And so, Nick, whether it's somebody with a superpower or if it's just a guy, they need to know that there's something unique and special in them, and they can connect to other people and they can give and receive love.
I think along those lines, be who you were designed to be. If your thing is education, then do excellent at education. If your thing is horses, like my kid, I think for that male, sometimes it is pressure to be like everybody else. And there's maybe not even an image for you to try to be like. Don't do that. Be who you are, and whoever you are, be great at that. Whatever that is, everybody does not have to be the football player. Everybody don't have to be the rapper. Oh my gosh, everybody don't have to be an athlete. There is so many beautiful things and beautiful, jobs or anything that you can be out there. And I would say be at that great level who you are. And we need different mixes of it. I was on a podcast, Brenda Sarah's, and there were so many different superpower kids. They had guitars and they were doing plants and they were actors and actresses. And I said, there's so much you can do. So I would tell guys, whatever it is that you like and you're doing, do that to the best of your ability, how you were designed. And don't worry about anybody else trying to be like anybody else. My two boys are completely different. I got an athlete and I got a superpower kid. And I don't want them to try to be like each other. And I would definitely say that for men.
Yes.
Both powerful messages. Thank you. I know that our audience is going to soak that in, and we really appreciate you guys being here again. It is awesome to have you on the show. I'm very, very honored. We're very, very honored to have you on the show. You guys are doing great things. Superpower Radio Show, again, for the audience. Where can they watch the show or listen to the show, and what platforms can they follow you guys on?
We're getting to be just about everywhere.
Yeah, we're getting ready to move on.
We are on iHeartRadio on their Power Me Up Talk 24/7 platform on Monday mornings. It's 9 Central Time, so you guys are Eastern Time, aren't you? Yeah, so 10 o'clock your time. So every Monday, and you can catch us on our YouTube channel, just Superpower Radio Show, on our Instagram, Superpower Radio Show, and on our website, which is www.adventuresofneo.com. So you can always catch episodes of the show there, and you can buy our books there and Neo merchandise. Yes, shameless plug. There you go.
No, plug away. Hey, this platform is for. So again, thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Mia, for being on our show. Happy holidays to all of our audience out there. The holidays is coming up, so we're very excited about that. We're going to do an episode about the holidays because I don't know about y'all, man. It sometimes it can be rough, but we can get to that another episode. But thank you guys. We got to do one on that. But thank you guys so much for being here. This is AutisHim, Black Fathers and Autism, and we out.